got Nicki Ablett from GIACOM. She was a judge on the IHR. What was it called?
The Innovation Showcase.
Innovation Showcase.
Yeah.
They've always got weird and wonderful names. But, so the concept, correct me if I'm wrong, behind that was for some of the more start-up, new faces in the rec tech scene within the TA and HR space to come and talk about who they are, what they do, that kind of thing.
Yes, definitely.
And you were one of the judges.
Yeah, that's right.
How the hell did you get roped into that?
So it's actually my second year running, so I must be a glutton for punishment. No, it's really good. So it's obviously voluntary. It's something that IHR put out on socials. I've got connections with obviously Mark and the team.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to get involved. It's obviously something that exposes us to different companies, brand new on the scene, a little bit like Dragon's Den. So it's really nice to kind of see what's out there and what's coming up in the future.
Who stood out for you?
So there was a company now, forgive me, I can't quite remember their name, but it started with text. Essentially what the company does...
Is it them?
No. It's text as in, like, I'm going to send a text.
Right, yeah.
Basically what they do is they use AI. Obviously AI is quite prevalent in the tech industry at the moment and the recruiting industry. And they build that into kind of your job adverts to eliminate any bias so that they can attract the widest pool of candidates possible. So obviously it scans your advert, looks for whether you're more leaning towards a male audience or a female audience, whether you're kind of more neutral, right down the middle. And that was actually really interesting. So I think there is other tools like that on the market, but that one, the way that the person presented was really engaging. So yeah, that for me stood out. So yeah.
As someone in talent acquisition, why is that important to you? Eliminating bias.
Yeah, I think
be it gender or any other type.
Yeah, I think it's obviously really prevalent now because we need to capture as many people as possible, but also make sure it's the right people that are going forward for the right role, if that makes sense. So it's really looking at the skills and making it so it's really, like you say, gender neutral. It's really going to encapsulate and focus on the skills that's needed for the role, essentially, rather than the person behind it. So yeah.
Does that not risk taking the personality out of the job advert?
Potentially.
Because there's a difference between job spec and job advert, right?
Yeah.
And a job advert has to be engaging. It has to capture the essence of, do you know what I mean? The imagination of the reader and that kind of thing.
Definitely.
Does it risk kind of changing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do know what you mean. I think it's potentially. I think sometimes you need to just speak to a candidate, understand how they come across, rather than just focusing on skills. There is a big focus on skills-based hiring at the moment.
Yeah.
But actually, for us as a business, we are looking at what they can add to the culture of our business, not just, right, they're going to fit the mould of what we need. It's what they can add to improve the business to make it better. It's really hard to assess that, isn't it, without kind of going through such a rigid process. But yeah, it's looking at cultural add rather than just fitting the mould, if that makes sense.
So who won the showcase?
So we find out at 3:15, I think, later on today.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we're not sure yet.
Who's your winner?
So
this won't be. No, this ain't live. So
okay.
Yeah, this won't be a spoiler of any form whatsoever. This is just more from my
yeah. So I think, like I say, I like the advert, the Textio kind of gender bias, neutral, engaging. But there's so many different things out there, and all three of the ones that I saw had AI weaved throughout. So I think that, again, it's the future, isn't it? So
I think it's just going to become, technology is going to be AI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sort of like when the broadband first became a thing and Wi-Fi became a thing, and you stopped talking about it and you just referred to it as the internet.
Yeah.
Or like when Bluetooth was a thing, and then it's sort of like, no, I just expect it to be within my devices now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
I think AI is just part of technology now.
Well, that's it. Our ATS has Copilot built into it.
Yeah.
So at the minute we are recording our interview screenings, and what that does is it not only records the video, obviously with the candidate's permission, but it then summarises the key points, the percentage of how much the recruiter was speaking, how much the candidate was speaking, and all the kind of things that were covered in there. And it's actually really accurate. but also it's not something we're reliant on. It's something that ultimately we have a conversation with the manager about the candidates we've spoken to, but it's a really good tool to assist us in what we need.
There's two really important parts of that, isn't there? Because the first is that actually it helps sense check what your gut might be telling you, right?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to recall a conversation without the transcript, without being
Yep.
able to go back and say, no, actually, it's not the transcript I'm talking about. There's the way this person said this, or there was a nuance to it.
Yeah.
So it certainly helps sense check that. But
Yeah,
also,
definitely.
if there's ever like an issue from a discrimination claim perspective, you've got the evidence there to say, well, look, actually, this is how we acted in that scenario, and I don't think we did anything wrong.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's a good safeguarding perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
What's your thoughts as a talent acquisition professional? What's your thoughts on AI at the moment? Are you for it? Are you kind of skeptical?
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit of both, really. I think you just can't beat human interaction. And I think that's where we need to probably not rely on it as a tool, but use it to assist us in what we need. So, for example, obviously without putting specific company information into the tool, looking at actually what you might need out of it. So, for me, I use it for socials, for example. So, when I hit a bit of a brain block, I'm not creative on, a gloomy Monday afternoon, come and help me, put together a social post for a business analyst role or something like that. So I think in that respect, it's really helpful, and it's a good foundation for you to tweak and monitor and use as accordingly. But for us, like I say, it's not something we rely on. It's something that helps us along the way. So,
how do you feel about candidates using AI as part of their application process?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm all for it. And I think where we probably see a lot of candidates coming through now is they use it very much as a copy and paste. They'll probably pop their CV in, give me a cover letter or something that it's going to spit out. And we see a lot of very much copy and paste, and it does look very AI. It doesn't put us off by any means, because at the end of the day, they still go forward for an interview if they meet the criteria and they pass the screening stage. But it's a good foot in the door. I think it's a good tool to use in the right way, again, for them.
But the key is there to sort of take the initial input or the output that AI provides you and then personalise it, right?
Definitely.
Let it give you the framework, but don't just go,
don't just copy and paste.
Then the pain point that everyone is feeling is the same, which is all our applications are literally the same.
Yeah.
Everything sounds the same, everything looks the same, that kind of thing.
Definitely. What do you think? What do you think about AI then in recruiting?
I from a personal perspective, in my personal life and my business life, it's been an absolute godsend.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people are so scared of it.
No.
I think there's a reluctance for people to embrace it, and I think those people are going to be the ones left behind.
Yeah,
I think the ones that are using it and have incorporated it into their data. It's the same as like my in-laws used to have a bookshelf of encyclopedias.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, why don't you just Google this stuff anymore?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's sort of that thing. Like if you don't still use an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Right. Or a Yellow Pages.
Exactly. Yeah.
You now use Google.
I said that.
Yeah.
I said that to my 10-year-old daughter the other day. I said, do you know what a Yellow Pages is, Phoebe? She was like, no, Mummy.
Yeah,
so I had to go through the whole explanation of what a Yellow Pages is. Yeah.
No, brilliant. Right, cool. Any closing thoughts, anything you'd like to leave us with? Any pearls of wisdom?
Oh, I think certainly from a TA perspective, I think it's just about being yourself. If you're looking for a new opportunity, whether you're looking to network or come to an event like this, I think it's really good to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. I'm a big believer in that, and I think through COVID it's kind of made us all quite insular. But I think, just try and get yourself out there and get your name out there and see what happens.
Networking is the only way.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
I say this
we don't do it very often, do we?
A lot of really good TA professionals are out of work at the moment, and I think are frustrated. I've applied over 300 jobs, and you're like, surely at some point you have to go, I need to do something differently.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And that's it. And I think that's why these events are so good at getting your name out there and meeting
But it's
new
no
people.
good just turning up. You've
Yeah.
got to go and introduce yourself to people. You've got to go and put yourself out and talk to people. Because otherwise, what's the point? You may as well just
definitely.
Sit at home.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, hope that helps.
It's been really good. Thank you very much. I appreciate you dropping by.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're back again at IHR Manchester Live. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma. We've got Michael Platt from the University of Manchester. Thank God for these, mate, honestly. So you're here today because you're doing a talk later on inclusive hiring, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
tell me about that. What is inclusive hiring?
Yeah, so the University of Manchester undertook a project last year to recruit 200 people from the local community across Greater Manchester that had one or more barriers to employment. So that could have people that had disabilities, it could have been people returning to the workplace after a period of absence, long-term ill health, people that were registered long-term unemployed. So working with them in our communities and with partner organisations to make sure that we supported them into paid employment opportunities.
Okay. Why? I know the answer, but it's the interview question here. Why is that important?
I think as a large organisation, particularly for us at the university, it's important because we are an anchor institution within Greater Manchester. We're one of the largest employers in Greater Manchester. I think our brand and reputation. We have a social responsibility to the communities in which we service and support to have an impact on people's lives and careers and opportunities we can provide that aren't just your typical and traditional academic appointments as well.
So why do you think more businesses aren't on board with sort of inclusion in general?
I think because there's a lot more of a commitment from an organisation that's required to support individuals through the processes when you're recruiting to people at more kind of entry levels or people who do have kind of traditional barriers to employment. It's much easier, isn't it, to go out to a search agency or to appoint people who've got bags and bags of experience. And I think because of the work and the time commitment...
It's also, yes, it's easier, but it is also more effective, right?
Absolutely, it's more effective, but I think you miss that kind of social value and that purpose-driven element to recruitment and that responsibility as an employer if you do bypass a candidate demographic such as the one that we try to promote and support.
Just playing devil's advocate here, why is it my responsibility as a business to help people get back into work? Do you know what I mean? My responsibility is to my shareholders or to my, my employees and my customers who I provide a service to, and the suppliers who supply me and who expect me to make payments to them on time, right? Why is it my responsibility to think about people who have struggled or have a barrier to work?
I think every employer has a responsibility to the communities in which they service and support. I think that, people pay into profits for businesses, and I think as part of that, the payback is creating job opportunities and supporting people from communities into work. And I think all businesses, large or small, have a social responsibility to that.
Social responsibility is a really funny one because I think my generation and the generation that came before me, so I'm a millennial, there's Gen X before us, we were very focused on profits over people, right? Whereas this new workforce that are coming in now, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the general trend is that social responsibility and social purpose means more to these people than profits, than the type of work they're going to be doing. They don't they want to know they're making a difference and adding value to society. That's the thing that they get joy from, not climbing that corporate ladder.
Absolutely.
And so actually, even if you're a business that historically hasn't taken their corporate and social responsibility very seriously, you're probably going to be forced to, because you're going to struggle to hire.
Yeah, I would totally agree, and I think you see some of that in the narrative that's played back to us as recruiters nowadays. Is obviously remuneration and package is important, but increasingly, as you say, with kind of the new generation of workers entering the workforce, you are seeing people look more at the values of an organisation around sort of carbon and net zero and emissions, or whether that be social responsibility, diversity hiring, and so on. So I think you will miss out on some of the top talent over the coming years if you don't take some of these things seriously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Speaking as a person who used to hire around a recruitment agency for 7.5 years, and there was an unwritten rule at the time when you would interview people and they'd say, you'd say, why do you want to work in recruitment? And they'd say, I just want to help people. And you'd go, what are you talking about? This is a sales job. You're supposed to be a salesperson. But what we found was there were more and more people coming through saying that than there were saying, I'm motivated by money. You know, you go, what are you motivated by? And I'm motivated by making a difference. I want to make social responsibility. You know, there's a certain joy that I get helping shape people's careers. And the penny started dropping for me at that point where I was like, this is what these guys want. This generation, they're not looking for, hey, in 6 months' time you'll be a senior consultant, in 8 months' time from that you'll be a managing consultant, you'll climb the career ladder, pay rise. What they want to know is, you know, what do you do as a business? Well, actually, we work in the accountancy and finance space, and we help shape the future accountants by placing them in their next role, which takes them, you know, through their career journey. We help get them qualified. We help, you know, sort of them find their specific niche within the accountancy world, and they used to love that because that's a story that they can be proud of and a badge that they'll wear with pride, rather than, you know, we just place people, send an invoice and make money, mate. Well, what do you want? You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and I think people that work in talent acquisition as well are probably the best placed within an organisation in that central kind of recruitment role to be able to make an impact and a real impact on people's lives. You know, you are quite often at the forefront of that candidate engagement, those hiring manager conversations, those criteria for shortlisting and structuring of interview and assessment centres, and you can really kind of cultivate that process to support individuals into employment opportunities. And so I think, you know, you have quite a key responsibility as a talent acquisition professional to ensure that you are kind of, you know, flexibly accommodating people of all different backgrounds, all different demographics, and all different needs.
Tell me about some of the flexibilities that I should be expecting to have to do if I'm considering, you know, making more inclusive hires.
Okay, so I think for me, or certainly for us, we would consider things like online interviews as being an alternative to in-person. I think flexibility around interview dates, times and options for that. You know, people might have caring responsibilities, people might have childcare and outside of work commitments, so being flexible in terms of dates and times, and also format of those interviews, whether it's online or in person. I think adjustments for people with physical disabilities, for example, so making sure people have and feel comfortable accessing an interview environment, so making sure you've got all the accessibility requirements that are needed. I think quite often as well, just asking people what adjustments would they like to have made for them, and quite proactively discussing that with them as a talent partner is important. Okay. Quite often I've found people won't necessarily be forthcoming in disclosing that they need an adjustment, so I think it's also quite responsible to proactively reach out and engage with individuals and offer those adjustments by just starting that conversation. I think you tend to get a lot back from people. Another one that we sometimes do as well is releasing interview questions in advance to give people time to prepare for their interviews, and I think there's a mixed schools of thought around that. I think some people say, you know, it gives people time to cheat, for example, in interviews, and they can research things prior to coming to the interview. But it can also mean that you can get to a much greater depth of conversation with someone in an interview environment, and you've also got your probing questions then to be able to, you know, follow on from your standard high-level interview questions that you might ask. And I think I've certainly found it relaxes the interview a little bit more, you get the best out of people, and it gives more of an opportunity, as I say, to deep dive into people's knowledge, skills, experience. So another adjustment we would consider is potentially releasing interview questions out ahead of the interview process as well.
Oh, I love that. This noise does my fucking head in. Every time it's when we're filming. It's always when we're filming, right?
Yeah, it's very noisy here today.
do you think, is there a long way to go, or are we nearly there? Right, look, we live in a world now where you know, remote working and flexible working is a thing. Flexible hours are a thing. You know, we have our shopping centres and our supermarkets have times of days where you wouldn't get anywhere near this amount of racket, right? You know, to accommodate those with you know, neurodiversity. We have extended and changed, you know, sort of working hours and opening hours. We have a range of different stuff, right? Yeah, people are allowed to. Yeah, there's cut-off times as well now with email and that kind of thing, and like rules being brought into work. Are we always there? or do you think we still have a way to go?
I do think we still have a way to go for me personally. I think at the moment it can still feel very tick boxy, and it can feel very kind of following the crowd at the moment. Everyone else is doing this, so I should do this. And I think there needs to be a real shift to inclusive practices that are more embedded and sustained within organisations, but
so
society in general.
Doing it because it's the right thing to do, not because everyone else is doing it and we're going to be the idiots not.
Absolutely, and I think you can see that, and quite often I find with things like charter marks as well, you can find that people have a lot of these charter marks on their recruitment sites and on their web pages and things like that, but do they actually embed some of those practices in their organisation, or really do they just want it for the poster to put on their website? And I think there's a bit of a way to go to make that meaningful and sustained, impactful change in the EDI space and inclusive recruitment, inclusive hiring, so that it's not just so that it makes you look good, but you're actually practicing what you preach day to day.
Yeah, I love that. Right, anything you want to add? Any closing comments? Anything you want to leave us with? Any pearls of wisdom? Save it for the talk, right?
Yeah,
you don't want to give it away. I'm with you, mate. Honestly, best of luck with the talk. It's been really good talking about this sort of stuff. We should definitely catch up about it.
Thank you very much.
Take care, guys.
Cheers,
Thank you very much. That's all from us.